Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good NAB show so far. Just wanted to talk to everybody a little bit about enabling ad sales revenue maximization through cross-media optimization. A little bit of background about myself. I'm the Vice President of Analytics at Decentrix. I've been focusing on optimization and analytics problems for about 15 years. 10 years of experience specifically in the media industry. So we work with, at Decentrix, some of the largest media organizations in North America. Many of the companies you guys all have as subscribers. The question out there today is, how do ad sales organizations manage, value, and optimize their ad sales inventory? The world's getting increasingly fragmented. So you've got multiple sales channels covering multiple distribution platforms, and you have the same underlying audience that everybody's trying to target. So how do you best optimize that world? And that's the challenge facing most ad sales organizations today. It doesn't matter whether you're a broadcaster, an MVPD, if you're in the digital sector, if you're in the linear sector. So the traditional steps to doing that most groups have focused on. You focus on inventory utilization. So this is really looking at a particular sales channel. Maybe it's digital, maybe it's linear. And you optimize that as best you can. And then maybe you'll focus on inventory allocation. So you might have carves that you do between different sectors of your inventory. So maybe you have local versus national. You have traditional linear broadcast versus addressable. And then you might, if you've done some of those steps right, start focusing on pricing valuation. But that doesn't really work when we get into the cross-media world, because the sales channels start to collapse into one large sales channel. The buyers out there are looking to purchase eyeballs. So it really transcends your traditional sales channels, and you're really trying to find out, how do you reach the right audience based on what the agency or advertiser is trying to achieve? So your traditional inventory utilization, inventory allocation, pricing models, they start to fall out a little bit. And what you find is that inventory utilization, constructing that campaign that's going to deliver what the agencies are looking for at the lowest cost to you as the seller, that's really where the sweet spot is when we're talking about revenue optimization. So when we really focus down on the problem, there's really two simple objectives that we're trying to achieve if we're looking at this through the lens of a sales organization. You're going to evaluate new proposed business. You're going to try to figure out if this is business you want to take. Is it going to fit within the inventory constraints you have? You want to understand how it's going to affect the existing business in your ecosystem. And at the same time, problem number two, you need to determine if you're going to meet all the contractual obligations you have with that existing business. So how do you balance those two things out? What a lot of organizations are faced with now, if you just look at the graphic there, we know that campaigns, these ones in the blue, let's call those booked business, those ones have overlapping inventory segments now. So people who are truck intenders or cat owners, they also take cruises and buy cars. There's competition amongst that. And if you don't understand what that competition is, you're just playing whack-a-mole with all of the campaigns out there. You fix up one campaign, try to get that to steward perfectly, problems pop up in another one. At the same time, if you're not taking into account all of that existing business when you're actually booking new business, new proposals coming in, you're actually cannibalizing your existing business. So neither of those scenarios really work well if you're thinking about how to maximize revenue more at a global organizational level. But the problem actually gets worse when we start thinking about that from cross-media standpoint. So you're not only making that decision in one particular inventory pool, you're making this across multiple types of inventories. So if I have a campaign that's running across linear addressable, VOD, traditional linear broadcast, how am I going to make that decision when it comes down to stewardship? I could maybe move some impressions for a campaign, or I could move some spots for a campaign into a different inventory pool. I might be able to shift them across time, but how do you know that? Just imagine this, if we're looking at the simple example here. I've got 5 possible states for each of these different campaigns out here. And I'm going to have a different possible combination in each week out there. So that gives us 80 different combinations that we could possibly have. That gives us 551 quadrillion, that's a real number, 15 zeros on that, combinations that somebody would have to sift through to try to find the best possible outcome. Now, I'll grant that there's probably more than one outcome that's achievable there. So let's just say there's 100 acceptable combinations that they meet the agency's needs and they're things that are actually going to deliver what you need. That's actually 5 times worse than your odds of being attacked by a shark on the same day you win Powerball. So just think about that. We've offloaded one of the most challenging problems to people who aren't designed to focus on just those problems. You know, we're thinking about how do we change the impression distribution? Wonder what I'm going to have for lunch. The whole model's actually incentivized in most cases for you to actually look after your own campaigns as well. So you're thinking about that big commission check if you're on the planning side. You're not really worried about what am I going to do that's going to cause harm to some of my counterparts' campaigns, because that's not how you've been incentivized. So again, nobody's looking after this from an organizational standpoint. They're really thinking about this from the traditional, how do I keep my campaign running as best I can while I'm trying to juggle everything else that's important to me. So today's reality, right, given all of that, given the limitations of the human mind, organizations, they manage the business in silos today. They don't know the states of their inventory. You know, people's intuitions about what's going to happen in the future, it's just not great. That's just not what humans were designed for. So they end up taking a very greedy approach to things like stewardship, things like accepting new business. They take it while they can, and they really don't worry about what's going to happen in the future because they really can't. Most groups look at it and say, taking revenue in the hand is much better than worrying about what revenue I could make in the future. They also need to often have really intimate knowledge about how different systems are going to behave to make them actually do what they need to do. And as a result of all that, they face significant under and over delivery challenges. And that actually comes at a hidden operational cost in the form of make goods and ADUs and bonus spots and other things that are going to keep their clients happy at the end of the day. So what do ad sales organizations need to do as they move into this future? Well, they need to start thinking about how to globally manage all of this business. You can't think about this at the individual inventory pool level. You've got to think about this further upstream. You have to know what inventory you have to sell. You have to know what that looks like today for your existing business. You have to know what that looks like tomorrow for business that you may potentially be taking as well. You've got to be able to dynamically steward all of this business. You know, we've just talked about the fact that there's, even in the simple problem, there's just an astronomical number of combinations to sift through. And people can narrow those down, and they do a pretty good job today. People are still paying the bills, the lights are still staying on, everybody's getting content they want, but we're talking about how to maximize that revenue. And if they don't get to a dynamic approach to doing that, you know, they're still going to be leaving money on the table. You've got to be able to do this in a simple way, though, that's going to be able to provide instruction to downstream systems, right? You don't want to have a system that's creating more work for people to run off and actually implement at the end of the day. So you've got to eliminate all those inefficiencies in the system. So what we're starting to look for is we're starting to look for a solution that ticks the box on a few different things. Revenue maximization. Started talking about business constraints a little bit. We'll dig into that a little bit more. You have to know the inventory states. You've got to be able to manage these ridiculously complex and large problems. And you've got to be able to do this now, and you've got to be able to do it in future positions. So what does that look like? Well, it's really AI and optimization coming together. Optimization is something that focuses on maximizing or minimizing a function, let's call in this case how you represent your business, based on different inputs that sort of constrain the problem to achieving your business objective. So what does that really mean? Well, let's think of business constraints as rules. So we've got to give this optimizer rules. These are rules that say, how far can I deviate in an impression distribution? My agency wanted a perfectly flat distribution across their whole flight. Is it okay if I deviate? What if I'm up or down 20% each week? Do they care? They probably shouldn't, because manual stewardship, I guarantee they're not hitting a perfectly even distribution in each time period. They're also looking at what inventory pools am I even allowed to deliver this on? We'll start to come into concepts like the equivalency of audiences across different platforms, right? If I've created a platform for mobile and I've got digital, I've got linear out there, as an advertiser and agency constructs a campaign, which one of those do they actually think are equivalent? Can I make good eyeballs that I've failed to deliver in mobile on digital, and vice versa? Those are just additional constraints that we've got to build into the system. As we mentioned, we've got to figure out how to quantify the business. The most common sense way that most organizations are focused on is, how do we grow revenue? So that's really what you want to focus on. But it's not just gross revenue, you've got to look at this net revenue. You've got to drive revenue at the lowest possible cost. So you're really maximizing what we define as a net revenue. Where does machine learning come in? Well, we've already talked about a few of these things. You've got to be able to predict a few different things out there. What your inventory capacities are, what the relationships between those inventories are. So again, how do you actually measure that overlap between people who would like to buy a truck and people who own dogs? You've also got to be able to look at inventory demand. So what are you likely to sell in a future time period? And then you've also got to be able to forecast what you're actually going to be able to deliver. But a little bit worse than that, what a third-party measurement group is actually going to tell you has been delivered. It's great to know what you've delivered from a first-party standpoint, but that's not how most organizations will actually invoice. They'll invoice off of a third-party measurement like the ComScore, Nielsen, groups like that. So how does this actually work? Well, we've talked about a few different things now. Net revenue, we've defined that already. We've defined some of those business constraints, and what I would start thinking of that is, let's call it campaign fidelity. So how closely does what I'm trying to deliver adhere to what the agency or advertiser's actually trying to buy? And we've got some time period. Maybe it's weeks, maybe it's days, maybe it's hours. We should expect that those time components will change radically as the technology changes. So we talked about those 550 quadrillion or so combinations. And when we think about what an optimizer is trying to do, it's trying to build a search space. So all of those different combinations plotted across all of these different axes. So what that leaves us with is a goal of trying to find what those sweet spots are. So in terms of this chart up here, what we would see is we've got some, I'll call it an optimal zone, where in each one of those time periods, we're trying to get the highest net revenue that adheres to the campaigns as closely as possible. And that's where optimizers are really designed. That's where the concept has been driven from fields of mathematics, centuries of research and application. But you've got to be able to do that again for every time period that campaigns actually cover. So you're doing this now for business that you've already taken. You're doing this into the future for business that you may or may not even recognize. But you're doing that based on the best possible assumptions so that you can drive revenue maximization for the organization. That's really what I wanted to cover in terms of optimization and enabling revenue maximization. If you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain those now. And if not, feel free to stop by our booth just behind us here at Decentrix.